The regular meeting of the Ethical Practices Board will now begin.
Welcome to the regular meeting of the Ethical Practices Board for July 13th, 2021. My name is Kyle Kroll, and I am the chair of the board. As we begin, I will note for the record that the meeting has remote participation by members and city staff as authorized under Minnesota Statutes Section 13D.021 due to the declared local public health emergency. The city will be recording and posting this meeting to the city's website and YouTube channel as a means of increasing public access and transparency. The meeting is public and it is subject to the Minnesota Open Meeting Law. As a reminder, I would like to request that all members mute their microphones when they are not speaking. At this time, I will ask the clerk to call the roll so that we can verify a quorum for this meeting.
Board Member Collins.
Present.
Vice Chair Balk.
Present.
Chair Kroll.
And I am here present.
There are 3 members present.
Thank you. Let the record then reflect that we have a quorum for today's meeting. And with that, we will now proceed with our agenda, a copy of which was posted for public access to the city's Legislative Information Management System, which is available at lims.minneapolismn.gov. The first item is adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll so move.
Second.
All right, thank you. I have a motion by Vice Chair Balk and a second by Member Collins. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Board Member Collins.
Present.
Vice Chair Balk.
Aye.
Chair Kroll.
Aye.
There are 3 ayes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take Member Collins present as an aye.
Yeah, that's what I did. I'm sorry. I was distracted. Sorry about that.
That's okay. That motion carries and the agenda is adopted. The next item on the agenda is acceptance of the meetings from our regular meeting of May 18th, 2021. And those have been circulated. May I have a motion to accept those minutes?
I'll make that motion as well. This is Vice Chair Balk.
Second.
Great. I have a motion by Vice Chair Balk and a second by Member Collins. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Board Member Collins.
Aye.
Vice Chair Balk.
Aye.
Chair Kroll.
Aye.
There are 3 ayes.
Thank you. That carries and the minutes are thus accepted. All right, we are now moving on then to an item of unfinished business. We have one item, and it is a motion to dismiss ethics complaint number 2020-42. Ms. Trammell, will you please bring us up to date on this?
Thank you, Chair Kroll, members of the board. This matter was heard for probable cause determination in January of 2021. And it was at that time that probable cause was found. And I was given instruction to offer a potential resolution to the subjects of this complaint. I did so, and the subjects of this complaint complied with both training that was prepared by another department. As soon as that training was available, they partook of that training. And they also met with me for a coaching session as to ways to avoid these any similar inadvertent problems that resulted in this complaint. And so I am recommending to the board that the board now dismiss the complaint.
All right, thank you, Ms. Trammell. Do I have a motion to dismiss this complaint?
This is Vice Chair Balk. I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, thank you. I have a motion by Vice Chair Balk and a second by Member Collins. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Board Member Collins,
Aye.
Vice Chair Balk,
Aye.
Chair Kroll.
Aye.
There are 3 ayes.
All right, then that motion carries and the complaint is dismissed, and we will issue an order on that. The next item then is a closed session. This session relates to preliminary consideration of allegations of violations of the ethics code by individuals subject to the authority of the board. Ms. Trammell will provide the board with a statement relating to the need to close the meeting to discuss these allegations. Ms. Trammell?
Thank you, Chair Kroll. The next 3 items on today's agenda relate to preliminary consideration of allegations of violations of the ethics code by individuals subject to the authority of this board. The Minnesota open meeting law requires the closure of a meeting for preliminary consideration of charges against an individual subject to the board's authority. Today, the 3 complaints pending review are all motions pursuant to Rule 7.6. Should the board determine that the Rule 7.6 is not appropriate and that discipline may be warranted, any subsequent meetings must be open to the public.
Thank you, Ms. Trammell. I will now then entertain a motion to close the meeting as required by Minnesota Statute Section 13D.05, Subdivision 2B, to conduct the hearings on ethics complaint 2021-27, 2021-28, and 2021-30. Do I have a motion to close the meeting?
This is Vice Chair Balk. So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Vice Chair Bauk to close the meeting, and it's been seconded by Member Collins. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Board Member Collins,
Aye.
Vice Chair Balk,
Aye.
Chair Kroll.
Aye.
There are 3 ayes.
Thank you. That motion thus carries, and the meeting is now closed. And at this time, we will now exit the current meeting, open the closed meeting.
The regular meeting of the Ethical Practices Board will now resume.
We are now back in open session. Will the clerk please call the roll to verify the presence of
Board Member Collins,
Present.
Vice Chair Balk,
Present.
Chair Kroll.
present?
There are 3 members present.
Thank you.
Chair Kroll, just a point of order. Could we get the person who just called in on the phone to identify themselves, please?
Sure, we can make that request. Is the caller willing to identify themselves? If you're speaking, you are currently muted.
The caller would need to press *6 to unmute.
Hi, this is Faiza. I'm a reporter with the Star Tribune.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We will now proceed then to our next item on our agenda, which is decisions on various ethics complaints. So we'll move first to ethics complaint number 2021-27. May I have a motion for ethics complaint 2021-27?
This is Vice Chair Balk. I will move to affirm the ethics officer's dismissal of the complaint pursuant to the rules and bylaws of the Ethical Practices Board, Section 7.6.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Vice Chair Bauk and a second by Member Collins. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Board Member Collins,
Aye.
Vice Chair Balk,
Aye.
Chair Kroll.
Aye.
There are 3 ayes.
Thank you. That motion thus passes. We'll now move on to ethics complaint 2021-28. May I have a motion for ethics complaint 2021-28?
This is Vice Chair Bauk. I will move to affirm the ethics officer's dismissal of the complaint pursuant to the rules and bylaws of the Ethical Practices Board, section 7.6.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Vice Chair Bauk and a second by Member Collins. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Board Member Collins,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bauk,
Aye.
Chair Kroll.
Aye.
There are 3 ayes.
Thank you. That motion passes. And now for ethics complaint 2021-30, may I have a motion for ethics complaint 2021-30?
This is Vice Chair Bauk. I will move with regard to that complaint as well to affirm the ethics officer's dismissal of the complaint pursuant to the rules and bylaws of the Ethical Practices Board, section 7.6.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Chair Bauk and a second by Member Collins. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Board Member Collins,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bauk,
Aye.
Chair Kroll.
Aye.
There are 3 ayes.
Thank you. That motion passes as well. That means we are now moving on to the agenda regarding reports. The next 3 items are reports of the ethics officer, and Ms. Trammell will provide a summary of those reports. Ms. Trammell?
Thank you, Chair Kroll. The first report is the ethics inquiry log and report. And I note for that report that it's been a fairly busy 2-month period, especially since we're meeting 1 week earlier than usual. And on the types of inquiries that have been made during this last period since the last meeting, that there have been a fair number of complaint process inquiries. A fair number of these come from members of the public who think that I, as an ethics officer, if they make an allegation that somebody in the city is, in their minds, being unethical, that I, as ethics officer, would have the ability to just remove them from their positions from a verbal type inquiry. All of these individuals are then given information about what the complaint process is really like and what the elements are for a proper complaint. Other than that, unusual amount of activity, the usual conflict of interest and gifts inquiries are up there as some of the more frequently asked questions. There is nothing in particular on the ethics log itself that I felt needs to be brought to your attention, but I would be willing to answer any questions if a member has a question about a particular entry on the log.
Do any of the members have any questions? The only, oh, I apologize.
I'm sorry, Chair Kroll, I do not.
All right.
I don't have any questions.
All right, thank you, Member Collins. The only question I have is with the complaint process, and I saw that number and was surprised by it too. And it looked like what you just said as well is that people are emailing frequently. It must be an email to you directly. Is that what's happening?
Chair Kroll, sometimes they come by phone, sometimes they come by email. Some, as started in one of the prior meetings, not included in that complaint process email are the times that I get emails or voicemails that just demand that I remove somebody from the office, or they request some other unactionable requests or commentary about stuff going on in the city of which this board has no jurisdiction over. Those aren't included in that. And there were 4 of those this cycle, less than in previous cycles. But I don't provide responses to those. These other ones are people who reach out to me and they have a particular concern about somebody and they want to talk about it with me because they think I can take some unilateral action and remove these people from their positions. And, that just isn't the case. And in addition, I am not permitted to give advice to an individual about somebody else's actions. I can only give advice to an elected official, an appointed official, or a city employee who is thinking about taking a particular course of action. Once they've taken it, they can't call me and ask for verification that that was okay. I also can't speak to members of the public or other employees about somebody else's behavior. And so that's a fair number of the things that we're getting. I heard so-and-so did this. You should remove them. I can't do that. And we have, a lot of times it's a conversation, not just an email. But I always follow up the conversations with an email that gives them the code, the bylaws, a complaint form, and what is necessary for a valid complaint.
I have a question. Is there ever been a campaign or an effort to inform the general public about the policies and procedures? I don't mean in response to a specific call or question, but has there ever been a flyer, distributor, information on the city website saying this is how you do this and this is the procedure?
Yes, it is on the City Ethics Board website.
Okay.
There have been some recent changes to the websites of boards and commissions. But I still believe that all of that information is on the website.
Okay, but there hasn't been any effort, like for example, with COVID, there was proactive efforts by the city beyond what was on the website to let people know what their options are, as an example. So I'm asking, has there ever been any effort like that to inform people of how we work? Because quite frankly, a lot of people would not have the knowledge or the sophistication to know to go to the website, or maybe they don't even have access to a computer or the internet. And if you don't have those things, then what's on the website is irrelevant as far as you're concerned because you can't access it.
And no, we have not done outreach like that to the public.
Has there ever been a discussion to do something like that?
Not by the board, no.
Okay. By anybody? Like, has the council ever asked about that?
No, the council has not asked.
Okay. I'm just thinking of ways to get the word out there that maybe if it was more universally known how the procedure worked, maybe that would cut down on some of these calls you get to unilaterally remove people and all this other kind of stuff, which clearly is not permissible or appropriate.
I'm not sure, Member Collins, that would be the outcome of such information. I think I would still get a fair number, because even after I have these conversations with people, I'd say in about 50% of the time a complaint does get filed, and it's still, like for example, we'll list an aspirational section as being violated, even after we've just had that conversation at great length about the fact that complaints can't be based on aspirational sections. And yet then I'll get that complaint. So I'm not sure that it would stop the calls. I think it would increase the calls, and which is fine. I'm willing to talk to anyone about what's required of an ethics complaint, but it may also increase the number of complaints that there's no basis for as well.
I'm interested in what Member Collins is asking about, and maybe would it make sense to have this as kind of a follow-up item for the next meeting? Kind of here's where people here's where information is available. And then here's what we've done, and have a brief discussion about ideas for, making it more well known. I'm looking, for example, and I know the website, to Member Collins's point, is not going to be the only place that somebody might look. Maybe they might go to the clerk's office as an alternative step if they don't have access to the internet or a computer. Go right to the city itself. Do we, whether we have a kind of information there, or kind of a brochure or handout. And looking at the website itself as well, we don't have a kind of disclaimer that says, if you just want the ethics officer to remove someone, that's not an appropriate kind of complaint. I wonder if they're, just taking a quick look at this and seeing if there's any recommendations from you, Ms. Trammell, about these things for discussion. Maybe that would help address some of the increase, while also ensuring that there's access to the process. And I'll just note one other thing, as long as I'm speaking. But I noticed that the way that this complaint's the process is supposed to work is that they're supposed to fill out a form, which is a PDF. I like the website, by the way. I think it looks nice, but then to submit that to you via email. And one thought I have, just looking at it, is whether that could be more of a form that they can just fill out right away that had kind of those instructions as part of the form. That might also increase accessibility. It's just an idea, but maybe having a future discussion after you've had time to look into all these things would be productive.
I'd certainly be willing to put that on next time's agenda.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I guess what I am thinking about, what I have in mind was, for example, a few years ago, the city instituted the 311. You could call about complaints and things. And I'm sure, at least initially, it probably did generate more complaints. But then it was something that kind of leveled the playing field. I mean, I live in North Minneapolis, and I can tell you that one of the complaints up here repeatedly has been that people are not in the information loop as much as other parts of the city for whatever reason. It could be lack of income, lack of education, sophistication, internet access. But people of the north side have been complaining for years that they're the last to know about options that are available. And from a public relations standpoint, this would be an excellent opportunity if we, or the city, and with the support of this board, took the initiative and said, hey, to take the same approach that the city did with 311. They just didn't rely on the website. They took several affirmative steps to make sure that everybody knew about it. And it was not dependent on your having access to a computer or being a little more sophisticated about how the city works.
Yeah, Chair Kroll and Member Collins, we do receive complaints via 311. 311 has information about the ethics board, and when people inquire, those callers get referred to me. And 311 at times has received matters that they're aware of that are could be issues that need to be dealt with either by HR or have an ethics component to them. And those complaints received by 311 then get forwarded to us. And even without an official complaint form, since so far they've all involved employees, and so those are handled by the departments in the regular disciplinary process, regardless. Those then get forwarded and acted upon, even though they weren't on official forms. The PDF form that is out there is a fillable PDF form, so it can be used, it can be filled out. And I have also mailed forms to people who have called me And so there are various different ways that we have gotten the forms into people's hands.
I'd certainly be willing to entertain the discussion on the outreach at a subsequent meeting. Just thinking ahead, if we were to decide to do some sort of outreach, where is the funding going to come from? Do we have a source that we could go to and ask for funding for some sort of outreach program?
Budgetary wise, the city attorney's office is short on budget this year, as neither Matt nor I or any other members of the office are. There's no funding even for continuing legal education to be paid for by the office this year. So right now we are a little short, but I could certainly investigate once we have an idea of what would be necessary. And there's also the chance that we could investigate using the communications department. I don't know what kind of charges they have. So we can look into that, but yeah, funding is an issue. We don't have a line item that's for the ethics board with any money in it, in other words.
Well, I think that's another great thing to include in the future discussion. What kinds of ideas might you have initially, and how would we make a request or a recommendation on them? If it's not too much to pile on to your already full plate. But I think would the next meeting be possible to at least have the discussion, have it advance the ball on it?
I think that would be fine to put on the agenda, and we can at least bring preliminary ideas.
That'd be great. Wonderful. Do we need to make a motion on that at all? It looks like there's agreement on it, but
I don't think that you need a motion. Staff has noted that this is a direction to bring up on a next agenda.
all right, wonderful. Thank you. And are there any other questions or comments about the informal advice report, complaint activity report? I guess that's the next report. Sorry.
Yes, Chair Kroll, the next report is the complaint activity report. There have been 10 complaints with 12 allegations filed since the May meeting. That number running, we've had 40 total to date. That it looks like we will be on record for a fairly busy year for complaints, notwithstanding the move to the new hotline provider and the slight change in handling complaints that allege more than one violator, whereas in the past we counted those as one. They will be counted as to the number of actual alleged violators. Even accounting for that difference, we're running well ahead of regular complaints. Although, one never knows what will happen from month to month, but complaints are running there are a few number of them, and depending on what comes in the next couple weeks, there may be need to call a special meeting. Sorry. So if we get complaints that require determination of a probable cause situation, the 40-day limit will either need to be waived by the chair, or we'll need to have some special meetings based on things I'm seeing. So want to just give you a heads up to that. But I think of more interest, if I could move on, Chair Kroll, to the other activity report. For that, there's been a lot going on here in the city related to my work as ethics officer. I've listed them in the other activity report. That's one thing that I want to speak about, has to do with the switch to compliance line for the employee complaint line. I wanted to let the board know that that we have moved successfully to the new line. There are some kinks that we are still working out, but ultimately we think that this line will be easier to manage. And that the HR team will be likely to use the team as well, which was a goal here, so that there would be less work on trying to track down outcomes for complaints, and that if HR is using this system, we will be able to get that data with less work on my end. And so I've sponsored and attended 2 trainings for end users, the HR people, for the complaint line. And then I've also appeared before an HR, what they're called business, HRBPs, business partners. They're the members of the HR department who work with departments and are involved in the complaints that come up for any disciplinary matter. I attended a training with them separately after the compliance line case management training, and I'm scheduled yet for another meeting as they are all coming online. It has been a bit of a challenge because they all received invitations to set up their accounts, and not a single one of them did so. And so by the time we ended up at the meetings, none of them had activated their accounts, and most of them needed help getting their information retrieved so that they could set up an account. So that process is slow, but ultimately there have been 2 of the HRBPs who have now used the system. And so they have reported favorably back to the rest of the group. And so I think continuing to work with them will bring this compliance line case management system online and be useful all around. And outside of that, there's a lot of activity going on in the political activity realm of things. And I will continue to be involved as the election season starts, and ultimately as the transition occurs for the next council cycle. And that will start in January when returning and new council members are sworn in. So I can answer any questions about that, but those are just kind of the highlights there.
Are there any questions from members of the board?
None for me.
Thank you, Ms. Trammell. Without objection, then, I will direct the clerk to receive and file these reports. That brings us then to announcements. Our next and final, I guess, item is announcements. Do we have any announcements?
Yes, I have an announcement for you. And so what I wanted to bring to your attention is that it is very likely, due to the COVID emergency being declared over in the state, and the city's emergency being extended a bit, the council and the mayor have extended the local health emergency through September 30th. And so it is uncertain as of right now whether or not we will be meeting in person in September, or if we will have at least one more remote meeting. So I will keep you posted as we learn things. Originally communicated to us was a goal to switch to in-person meetings after the Labor Day holiday. So that could mean that we meet in person in September, but I don't know that. So I will keep you posted. That was my announcement.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any other announcements?
I just want to thank everybody for agreeing to move the meeting to today. I know there's a lot of moving parts and I appreciate everybody being flexible to meet with my the fact that I have a conflict for next week. So it's much appreciated, folks.
Wally, it couldn't get much better because you were aware of your conflict when we set the schedule in January. There's not much more notice one can ask of someone.
Well, but again, I appreciate it because everybody's got their own calendars and things they need to do. So again, much appreciated.
Well, speaking of potential conflicts, I'm going to have my right knee replaced August 23rd, and I'm going to be out of pocket for a while. I think I'll be okay by the time of the September meeting to meet in person, but I may not be. So I just thought I would put that out there that depending on how my recovery is going, I would request the option of being able to participate remotely.
Okay. We would make that work if need be.
Okay.
Certainly.
Clinton, good luck with that.
Yes.
Best of luck. Safe. Hope everything goes well and you have a speedy recovery by the time we see you again.
Well, thank you.
As we were talking about meetings, I was thinking that I have actually never had an in-person meeting, and neither has Member Collins. Just so happens that we've been members completely during the pandemic. So I do look forward to seeing you in person, but all in.
Wait till you see that little room we've got.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well,
One other announcement while we're at it, the day of our September meeting is actually also going to be, we are having our 50th anniversary firm party that day. Sounds like at the Lake Harriet Pavilion over here in St. Paul. So I'm going to just, if that being the case, and I'll let you know, we're going to, obviously everyone is invited to come hang out and have some food and all of that good stuff over here. It's, we've had a party pretty much every year, and it's pretty much, other than COVID, and it's kind of a blowout fun deal. Lots of attorneys, judges, clients, that sort of stuff. So Kyle, and you can come over here and feel free to try to, you know, take some clients away from us if you want to. Clinton, I'd say that the same to you, but you work for an insurance company, so.
yeah, I won't be taking anybody no place.
Now you said Lake Harriet Bandshell in St. Paul.
Yeah, the pavilion over here.
Oh, the pavilion. There's a
Yeah.
Lake Harriet Pavilion.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I'm going to bring us back to task.
Okay.
All right. Are there any other announcements affecting the board?
Not that I can think of.
All right. Well, then, with that, we have completed all items on the agenda. I will ask if there are any other matters whatsoever to come before this meeting. If not, and then without objection, I will declare this meeting adjourned. The next meeting will be September 21st, 2021. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, board members. Appreciate your time.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.